Blackburn Rovers fans have had a terrible time in recent years. The club itself was taken over in a deal that was actually engineered by one specific agent who was hired by the Jack Walker Trust to find an owner. And also separately, he got to know Venky's in India and told them that he found an investment for them. So he was sort of paid by the Jack Walker Trust to introduce new owners, and he was also being paid by the owners to advise them to find them a sports investment. What happened is, when the club, on the day of the takeover, a management agreement came into play whereby a company called Kentaro, which is now defunct and being investigated in relation to FIFA corruption, actually took over, had a contract to make day-to-day decisions about the hiring and firing of managers, players, commercial agreements. Nobody knew about this deal, but this came in from the day of the takeover. We're talking about 2010. So at exactly the time that the club was taken over and was basically being run by an external consultancy, Kentaro, to all intents and purposes, and by an agent who was advising Venky's, Jerome Anderson, that was coincidentally the exact time that Sam Allardyce was sacked, and Jerome Anderson's client, Steve Keane, was coincidentally made the manager of Blackburn at that point. So I discovered that very early on in 2011, the Football Association launched a formal investigation to try and establish who was running Blackburn Rovers. Was it in fact being run by a shadow director, being influenced by agents? And letters were sent back and forth from the FA as they tried to establish what was going on. Much later, I obtained some paperwork which showed that there was this legally binding agreement for Kentaro, this agency, to basically hire and fire managers and players. I went in to see David Newton, who was then the head of the FA's integrity, to ask him what was going on at Blackburn. And he said, and I'll paraphrase and take out the swearing, but he said something to the effect of, "Where the hell did you get this from?" He was shocked. What's really pertinent here is, at that time, Kentaro were a commercial partner of the Football Association. They probably should have been able to do something if they had had the will to actually, for example, press charges against an agent for breaking agents' rules, if they had the will to take on a commercial partner and ask them what they were doing involved at Blackburn Rovers. There are things they could have done, but obviously they had a conflict of interests. It's one thing that actually would be removed or certainly lessened if, for example, there was an independent regulator that didn't have the turkeys voting for Christmas.